So in places in like New York, for example, a lot of people are seeing New York open up. You've heard Cuomo talk about New York. We're going to be fully open by July, by September. What I think it's like by September something. They're going to be doing like full theaters and full stadiums, etc. At least that's the goal, right? Now, this doctor, I believe his name is Dr. Lena, and she is one of the fear mongers and promoters for the poke, right? And so everything, like I've said before, everything is about get the poke. It doesn't matter what's going on, whether people blood clots, it doesn't matter. Women having changes in the menstrual cycle, it doesn't matter. Everything is about doing this one step. You must do this next step. It's like no matter what, they'll offer you money. They were like free beer. There was another place that like offering free donuts, and it's just like, wait a minute, weren't the people who were dying from this thing like part of the, predominantly or obese, and now you're offering people free donuts? Or like there was another state they were offering like $100. There's another state that said if there was there was another policy or study that showed if there's some sort of a financial incentive, that most of these people who were like, I'm kind of on the fence, they'd be like, what? If you offer me $100, give me a coupon. How about a pint of beer? Then they'd be like, all right, I'll take it. And it's because everything is all about this next step, right? And it's just basically pushing people into this particular direction. Do they say that you can still contract this particular disease? Yes, they still say that. And in fact, I've shown it. I've shown it in numerous occasions where the individuals who got it shortly after getting it somehow mysteriously end up in the hospital ICU, especially if you're a geriatric person. I've shown with Israel, Spain, America, many of these individuals who have taken it, unfortunately, end up testing positive and ending up in an ICU. Now, of course, this is not all people, as most of the young and healthy individuals, but on a rare occasion, like I've shown, there have been young people, doctors, who have taken the poke and have lost their life or had a stroke or had a mysterious heart attack. And of course, it's always, well, we can't really narrow it down whether or not it was the actual poke, but we'll keep you posted, right? Like that, like what is it? The person who's in charge of Biden's team there, she's like, oh, we'll get back to you, right? We'll get back to you. Don't worry about that. Now, of course, we're going to dissect this video, and we're going to look at some other information, very interesting information coming out.
Because you cannot have decisions only made by scientists. Again, you don't want to go back to the Trump administration where politics is driving everything, but you have to take into account these other factors too. And so get rid of the firewall and instead start making very practical recommendations. The most practical of which is get the vaccine. 2 weeks after you get the vaccine, go back to many aspects of pre-pandemic normal. I would also say, because there are a lot of questions now about when do we lift restrictions, I think the time is right now.
And that's why you're seeing places like New York basically lifting restrictions. I mean, granted, in places like Texas and Florida, where they've been lifting restrictions, and you don't see any of the disaster that was forecasted, people just dropping dead in the streets. Instead, they've had crowded baseball. But it's very interesting that they still, of course, promote people getting this. And in my opinion, this is all part of the narrative. As many people point to these areas as perhaps areas of where freedom is being preserved, and I'm not that gullible. I don't like the Bible says, I don't believe everything that is said to me. I do my own research. And so even within these particular areas, you'll still find businesses that still, of course, have require masks to go into, whether it's especially in many of the liberal cities in Florida as well as in Texas. And overwhelmingly, many of these individuals have already received the medication, right? They've already received their poke. So it's not like these people are like, no poke, no nothing, right? They're not going that route. Most of these people are taking it and they're like, okay, so we realize, well, maybe we should just lift. But the whole purpose is to take the poke, right? At the end of the day, no matter what happens, that is the goal, is to get people to take the poke. Because this is just scene 2 of what is to come.
As in, you say, restrictions are still in place if you cannot guarantee vaccination status. But if you are checking for proof of vaccination, all restrictions are lifted. Full theater, full indoor dining, etc. if you check vaccination status. If not, 30% capacity. I actually think something like that is...
And that's more than likely how they're going to get the businesses. And I've shown For those who have seen the video I posted talking about the Well Health Safety Seal, which I'll post that video up top so that you can take a look at it. And that's basically the goal, right? Hey, if everybody who comes into your establishment has already gotten the poke, you can go wide open 100% capacity. So now that incentivizes businesses financially, especially after the federal government and local governments have done basically everything that they could to squash the small businessmen, right? And so all these businesses have been crushed. And so obviously from a preservation standpoint, they're going to be like, this is the route that we're going to go. They're not going to stand for freedom. They're going to say, you know what? I need to feed my family. I need to keep a roof over my head. So everybody coming in here, you're going to have to take the poke.
Actually eminently doable. This is not a pipe dream. We're seeing Israel do it. We can do it here in this country too. And I actually think that...
And I've already spoken in depthly about Israel and why typically you don't see such a high infection rate or a death rate in places, for example, like in Africa and Sweden, and of course places like Israel. And it's primarily because they have such a very young population, especially when you look out into Africa, where Africa doesn't have, the best access to healthcare systems, right? And they were like, we really haven't seen what you guys are seeing, but overwhelmingly where high deaths have taken place are typically in areas where they have much older population, like for example, Italy, the UK, and America, that have a higher medium average age. And so as a result, many of these individuals have unfortunately lost their life, and especially when it comes to older people, or in places, for example, like in the UK and in America, where obesity runs rampant.
This is what we need to do to overcome that final bit of vaccine hesitancy.
Right. And so this is basically how they're going to get people who haven't taken it. And we're not going to force you. We're not going to hold you down. Right. But we're going to make life difficult as possible for you to keep your job. Businesses will be able to say, well, if you haven't gotten the poke, you're not going to be able to work here, or you're going to work into some area or in some limited capacity. This is what would be coming forward, especially as more and more people do take it. Those who realize, I'm not going to go that route, you may be facing some hard times, and you should be prepared. Now, like I've said before, according to Upshot, it says $100 incentive to take it, and they were like, it says experiments suggest it could pay off, right? So in essence, they were like, well, what can we do? Can we offer some sort of an incentive? There was one place, I think, at the baseball field, they were like, hey, free pint of beer, and they were like, well, we'll get you $100 certificate at Walmart. Well, how about a $100 bond? I think it was in Oregon or someplace, where they were offering the young people who were like, why am I going to take this? Like, I'm young. I'm like 18, 19. Like, it don't even faze me.
With Lena here, that I've had the chance to speak to young workforces, professional sports teams, younger people in the last several weeks, and they need carrots. And it's not going to work. Their risk-benefit calculation on the vaccine versus the virus is fundamentally different than when I'm speaking to my folks or my individuals in my parents' generation, where get the vaccine or else you may end up on a ventilator. That just does not work to somebody who's 35 or younger, professional sports player, or somebody that's entering college. Either you mandate it when you can mandate it, and there's pros and cons to that approach, or you need carrots. And carrots in the form of you get the vaccine and life becomes easier.
But of course, this is the narrative. The narrative has nothing to do with the particular disease. We've already seen the statistics that 99% of anybody over 60, they're just like, the virus, they just brush it off. And those of people who are more on the geriatric side, it's around a 95%. These are the statistics that come out of the organizations like the CDC and the World Health Organization. And I've done numerous videos showing in different parts of the world where overwhelmingly it is around, we can comfortably say 95% people not even phased by this particular disease, because it really has nothing to do with the disease, to the point where you've got even the rhetoric of Cuomo coming out saying, well, if you don't take it, there's a good chance you might kill your grandma. And of course, appealing to people's emotions, right? To think that if you hug your abuela, that you're going to end up being the result of her dying. Now, granted, Cuomo, who was deliberately responsible for the death of thousands, and this man is still in office. I want you to think about that. Think about that a man who hid numbers about how many people he threw back into nursing homes who were infected is still running the city. That should cause many Americans to realize maybe things are not as it appears. And so to the point, we're going to look at another country, right? Another country who went all in on the poke, right? They went all in. And as a result, this is the outcome. Prognosis, according to Bloomberg, this is from today, right? Is it today? Yes, excuse me, yesterday. May 4th, this is world's most poked nation. Activates curbs as cases rise, right? So I'll leave the link for this article. 62% of the population have already received the poke. They said, we're going all in. We're going hard on this mother, right? We're going to wipe this out. And then they're scratching their head and they're just like, ¿Qué pasó? What happened? They were like, I thought we should be good. And then now they're seeing cases start to rise. And I honestly wonder, PCR swabs are very easily manipulated. I've shown that in numerous videos, or you can just ratchet the CT value, right? The amount of times that the threshold for the swab, right? The more it gets cycled, the higher the threshold, the more likely you are to come up with a false positive. And so there's numerous ways where this can play out. Are they ratcheting up the CT values? Is the PCR swab picking up the spike protein, right? That's because that's what it produces. It's not like like a flu vaccine or other vaccines for that, where sometimes they give you what is called an attenuated vaccine. And it basically means they give you a little bit. They give you a little bit of the actual live virus, and then your body immediately has an immune response. And of course, there's other ones where they'll like kill the virus, but they'll put the dead virus inside your body and it creates an immune response as well, but not as strong as an attenuated, right? An attenuated virus, because it actually is the live virus. This particular vaccine does neither. What it mimics is they inject into your body messenger RNA. And it's a message, right? It's a message to your RNA, which is responsible for producing proteins in your body. And it says, build this particular protein, right? So it tells your body to genetically create protein that are foreign to your body, right? This protein it is the spike protein, right? So your cells, think of it like a woman's vagina, right? The spike protein is the penis. It's just a female to male insertion, right? And so that's how the spike enters into the cell, right? Through a simple lock and key, right? You have the lock, the spike protein is the key. And so it tells your body to make this particular key. Now, this key is foreign to your body. And so I wonder, is it picking up the spike protein, or is it doing something else? That is a topic for another discussion that you probably can't have on this forum, but it is something to think about. For people who imagine, like I said, that things are going to go back to normal, I'm not thinking that this is going to be the case. We've seen the outcome of those who have gone all in, and we see the result, right? Well, again, there's numerous ways that this can be played out. But if you think that this is going to be the end result and we're all just going to go back to normal, in my opinion, by the time the fall rolls around, it's going to be a different story.